Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Sanders, and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. Today, I want to talk about sort of indicators of quality in a watch. We talked about this before, but I'm going to try to use some very specific things today. And I wanted to start off just showing what, to me, is the ultimate in watchmaking. And this is a watch by Philippe Dufour. For years, Philippe Dufour worked for Patek Philippe, and then he left them and went off on his own and started making some of these incredible watches. He only made a handful of them, but he made the ones he made were amazing. The two main ones, one was called Singularity and the other one was called Duality. And this is the back of a duality. And in addition to the technological or the mechanical craftsmanship, you can see how all of the sides of the bridges and plates are chamfered along the edges, and it's just really beautiful that it's done. And so what I wanted to do is see if we could break that down. Now, in order to do that, what I thought I would do is to take a look at the Poinçon de Genève, in other words, a Geneva seal. And the Geneva Seal is one that is given to watches that meet a certain criteria. Now, interestingly, for years, a major recipient of the Geneva Seal was Patek Philippe. But I think it was like back in 2005, right around then, there was some kind of something, and Patek Philippe said, well, we don't need you. We'll have our own standard. And the thing about the Poinçon de Genève was that it's an external thing. In other words, saying, hey, this is the good housekeeping seal of approval, and not just, a bunch of guys saying, hey, it looks okay to me. And so it became fairly important. Now, there were 5 elements to that. The first was provenance, and it was made by in the Republican Canton of Geneva. Well, it was simply for Geneva and the Canton of Geneva, so that left out all of the other watches outside of Geneva, not to mention the ones outside of Switzerland. The second was craftsmanship, and this is each watch component must be made with the utmost care and finely decorated. Now, this is something we can look at, and this can apply to any watch anywhere. Third is reliability, and this is it serves to showcase its correct operation. And that's something else that we can measure. Now, the fourth and fifth one, authentication and les héritiers de l'excellence, these are more record keeping than anything else. And so the important things I think for us to look at is what goes into the Poinçon de Genève, the Geneva Seal. What are the details of craftsmanship and reliability? And we can look at our own watches and say, hey, yeah, mine, got it or not. There's a close-up there of Vacheron Constantin. It happens to be mine. I have 2 watches with the Geneva Seal. This is the Historiques Americain 1921 by Vacheron Constantin. The other one is a Patek Philippe from 1968. Now, back in 68, Patek Philippe's had the Geneva Seal, and they were one of the few that did. Most of them, 90% plus, went to Patek Philippe. And I think one of the things that happened was that the people at Geneva Seal said, well, hey, these other guys deserve one too. And there was some kind of falling out. I don't know exactly what it was, but after 2005, you started seeing this big PP for the Patek Philippe seal of approval, which is, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's sort of like, well, that's not exactly an external, seal that says, hey, you've done something well. There are other ones available, but they decided to have their own. Okay, so let's take a look at craftsmanship and reliability as defined by the Geneva Seal. Okay, first of all, the craftsmanship. You start with the base plates and the bridges. And the big thing here is to remove all machine markings on it. And these are those, use a very regular kind of, they look like scratches, not scratches, but sort of some kind of machine lines on it. And using the chamfer and polish, you can remove all of those. There are some examples there. And the polishing, and the chamfering and polishing, especially the polishing, keeps corrosion and rust down. So they really come from a functional base to it. Some of the other things they have, there's a base plate with the before and after. The before is just sort of a big solid, it looks like brass. And afterwards, they've got it all dolled up with perlage and other kinds of things to make it, to remove any machine actions to it. Some of the things have that they include the polished chamfers, the straight grained sides to it, circular graining. This is a perlage that eliminate all machining marks, smooth down bridge supports, polished bevels in holes and recesses. These are where you find, and I think before we looked at the German watches, some of them, some of the better ones, use gold chatons for that. So, this is still good though. They're polished and so forth. Polished sinks for jeweled holes. And the tops of bridges must be finished in Geneva stripes or other decoration. It eliminates machining marks. Okay, well that's, you can do that in just about any. Some of the guys who belong to the pretentious watchmakers that's what they like to do. They like to take these bridges and these from, pretty cheap watches, like a Chinese knockoff of a 6498, get it all polished up and chamfered and, using black polish and so forth. It really makes them look incredible. Okay, some more craftsmanship. This has to do with the adjustment system. And they have sort of an interesting thing. The balance spring may be pinned up with a groove plate, okay, having a round collar cap, but they can't use glue. That's a no-no. Mobile stud holder is acceptable as long as it's locked in position. Splitter-fitted indexes are allowed with holding system, except in extra thin calibers where the holding system is not required. And then balance wheels adjusted by variable inertia are acceptable. Down at the bottom there, you can see those little weights on the outside. You have a variable inertia by screwing those in and out. That's really takes a good watchmaker. The other kind is that you have a little screw or some kind of lever that tightens or loosens the hairspring. The shorter it is, the faster it runs. The longer it is, the slower it is. Okay, fourth, more on craftsmanship. Now, there's something that's called a going train. The going train, I don't know where they got the word from. It's also called the gear train. And it's the, you can see it there. I used a Lang and Hein Georg because they have such an open system for their movement. And you can see there from the bottom where the power is supplied by the expanding spring, and then all of those gold wheels that go straight up are that's the going train. And now they have to be chamfered above and below. Down in the lower right there, you can see this is sort of the spoke on the thing has to be chamfered. And I was looking at this, and you need a pretty high-powered loop to see all of the chamfers. The chamfers on that one is from my Frederick II from Lang and Hein. And then there's an example of a polished sink. Okay, so these are all things that are included. Now, in addition to polished sinks, where they have a lot of these also have the gold chatons. Okay, wheels that are less than 0.15 millimeters, a single sink is allowed. Okay. And then they have a whole other ones. Crossing hub and rim must be chamfered. The functional parts, the pivot shanks, the pinion faces, and the pinion leaves. Everything has to be polished up and made for two things, really. I mean, and like I said, you get something all polished up and in good shape, it's going to last longer. It really is. I mean, this is what they were for originally. But with the kind of waterproofing they have today, it's not the problem it used to be. But still, that's craftsmanship. The next craftsmanship element are the wheels and gears that are not part of the going train. Your winding wheel, for example, would be an example of that. And they have to have pretty much the same kind of standards as the wheels from the going train. They're a little different because of the nature of what they do. The ratchet wheels and crown, they have to be decorated to remove all of the machining marks. Well, removing the machining marks is the big thing about it. And the ratchet wheel and the crown wheel have to be chamfered and polished teeth if thick enough. Now, polishing all of those teeth it can be a lot of work, but that's one of the things. If you have it, that's a good thing. Finally, the jewels on the bridge side, they have to be semi-brilliant and polished sinks. Now, these are all man-made, so they can be made in those shapes. And the last aspect of craftsmanship that the Geneva Seal requires is that the shaped parts and supplies have to be the same kind of criteria. They have to be polished chamfers, straight grain sides, and smooth down supporting faces. And they must be leveled or finished with any other decoration that eliminates matching marks, or machining marks, I'm sorry. So, I mean, you have what you really have in summary for your craftsmanship, or what's called craftsmanship, is taking these machine parts and smoothing them up. Some time ago, I was reading about people who do this. They're called finishers. And the finishers, according to Vacheron Constantin, who is now the main holder of the Geneva Seal, they said it takes about 2 years to train somebody to be really good at this. That's, they must be really good. The guys that I know in pretentious watchmakers, doesn't take them quite as long. All right, so now let's go on to the next set of tests for the Geneva Seal. This is reliability. And the thing about reliability, these are things we can test ourselves. You can even do it without any special machines. So let's take a look at the things that they have. First of all is a functional test, and this is for all functions that a watch uses. You have to test them to make sure that they do what they say they're going to do. The one I have, for example, is the Patrimony moon phase and retrograde date. Well, they have a hand date, and so they got to test it, make sure the hand changes the date when it's supposed to, and then pops back to 1 when it's supposed to. And then a precision moon phase. Precision moon phase is the way they describe it, Vacheron Constantin. So they have to find out, well, what is precision of, and does it meet those standards? Now, they have a whole list of things: deadbeat seconds, chronograph, flyback chronograph, simple calendar, all the way down. And then at the bottom, it has 3 dots, which means whatever else that comes along. Now, it says something interesting. The company must define its procedures and send the copy to the Poinçon de Genève office. So they have to say, okay, this is what it does and all of the details. Then the office verifies that these procedures are applied during the audits. Okay, they test them. The next is water resistance. They have all of these pressures they have, and I guess if something flunks it, they get soaked. But somebody says, hey, our ours has water resistance up to a certain point, and they got to meet that. But according to this, they go to 3 bars, and then a negative pressure of 0.5 bars. Okay, now if the manufacturer says, well, hey, you can use ours for diving down to some further depth, they'll test it for that too. The accuracy, we had talked about accuracy before as being important. And what they do is sort of interesting. I thought they'd be using time graphers, but you really don't. You can test this yourself simply, with your computer or your mobile phone or something. It says readings taken on day 0 and day 7 are tested using visual comparison system, and then it says developed especially for the test. Okay. We can do our own, I think, on this. And then the readings taken on days 0 and 7 are compared with a reference time. Hey, we can set up our computer to be hooked into an atomic clock if we want. So there are a lot of things we can do with that. Then it says after 7 days, the watch must not have varied by more than 1 minute. Okay, a minute a week. So that's, I don't know, let's see, that'd be 60 divided by 7. That's about 10 seconds a day. That's not that hard. So anyway, that's a test that we can run ourselves on accuracy. Now, the final one on reliability is the power reserve. And this is a fairly simple one. The watches that I have here are simply examples of watches that have the Geneva Seal. Now, on this particular one, this one by Roger Dubuis, is simply say, okay, well, it's good for 42 hours. So you wind it up, you put it down, and you do it with dial up, and make sure it's still running after the time they say it is. If it says 42 hours, you check it at 42 hours, make sure it's still ticking, and so it's not that difficult. That's something we can do with our own watches. Okay, well, listen, this is, like I said, you have, despite whatever politics or costs and so forth that may go into a watch with a Geneva Seal, we know that, first of all, it's just Geneva, but for other watches, the test of craftsmanship and reliability, I think, are good ones that we can use on our own watches. And it doesn't matter whether you got a cheap one that you made yourself, like I might, or something fairly expensive. We can use these things to determine to what extent our watches have a special quality. And one of the things, we might find watches that have great quality, great craftsmanship, and great reliability, and don't cost us a lot of money. Anyway, love to hear your opinions, as I always do. And if you'd like to subscribe, this is an invitation to do so. Until next week, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Outside, the Art and Science of Watch Collection.